What I feel about lesbian feminism in Korea at this time is it is an extraordinary and wonderful awakening. I mean, it is happening in other places too, and it's happening in the UK, but here it is particularly obvious to the naked eye, and it's wonderful. That's all I can say about that. I mean, I argue in my book, The Lesbian Revolution from last year, that it was lesbian feminists who were the beating heart of the women's liberation movement in the 1970s and 80s. It was mostly lesbian feminists who set up the shelters and the rape crisis centres and the women's centres and the presses and so on and so on and so on. Lesbians were absolutely fundamental to the women's liberation movement. And to see lesbian feminism happening so strongly here now, right at the very beginning, is a really good sign. I chose to be a lesbian, as you saw me saying in the television program, in 1977. And at that time, thousands and thousands of women in the women's liberation movement in the UK and in America chose to be lesbians. And we did so because we understood heterosexuality not just to be a sexual preference, but to be an institution which controlled women's lives and extracted women's labour for men's purposes. But also because we understood women to be the solution. If men were the problem, women were the solution. And why would you spend your whole life's energy pouring it into the problem, who we're actually never going to change, and individually one-to-one they almost never do, rather than changing the whole world and creating a revolution, which you can only do by loving women and creating a phalanx of women's energy. Now, at that time, we knew it was possible to choose to leave men and become a lesbian because ideas of social construction were very dominant in the social sciences, in the society really. In the 1960s and 70s, the idea that people were subordinate or inferior because of something genetic was challenged. So, for instance, the idea that black people in America were inferior intellectually because IQ tests said they were or whatever, that was really challenged. And the whole basis of IQ tests was challenged. It was impossible to have black revolution when there was this terrible ideology controlling black people. The same was true in terms even of class, because, there have been ideas that poor people are naturally that way, that they couldn't ever have any kind of other opportunities because they had a kind of mind. That was overturned. And of course, the idea that women were naturally inferior and had lesser minds was overturned. Without the idea that these apparent markers of inferiority were socially constructed and could be overthrown, revolution was not possible. Simply not possible. Well, one of the ideas of social construction, of course, was that sexuality was socially constructed too. The sociologist said so, the anthropologist said so. For instance, there were anthropology books showing that in different cultures, people had very different attitudes to sexual practice. Apparently, in the majority of cultures in the world, the act of kissing on the lips is seen as disgusting. I don't know what the situation here is in Korea about kissing on the lips. Is it allowed? Okay. And when you think about it, it is pretty disgusting, right? But it is absolutely normative in the UK and in America. So that shows the influence of culture on what people are expected to be able to do sexually. In terms of homosexuality, of course, in ancient Greece, it was absolutely normative for adult men to have sexual relations with boys. That was normal, and it was to be expected. That was the form of homosexuality that happened there. In Afghanistan now, it's pretty much the form of homosexuality that happens there, and is common in men who are otherwise seen as homosexual, as heterosexual. So what happened was, in the West, there was a move towards extreme social conservatism. In the 1990s in particular, social constructionism was put under threat. And so now there are even many lesbians who say they were born this way. I don't think anybody's born any kind of way. Apart from anything else, that would condemn women to be in heterosexuality forever, and I want them out. Right? And of course, it's simply, if heterosexuality is compulsory, is biological, so is lesbianism. We all just don't do anything. There's nothing you can do. You are condemned to whatever your situation is. So social constructionism enables us to believe we can get out of heterosexuality and love other women. But of course, in order to do that, you need a women's movement. You need spaces to go where you can have the music and excitement that allow you to notice other women and get excited by other women. Various factors are necessary for women to be able to proceed into the love of women. But to actually prevent them from doing so by saying that lesbianism is innate and women can't be lesbians and can't change, prevents movement, prevents revolution, and is a hugely conservative and divisive position, it seems to me.
1970, 90년대 영미권, 여성해방운동의 물결 속 꼽혔던 레즈비언 운동의 기록. 여자를 사랑하기로 한 여자들, 레즈비언 혁명.